So we're in week 8 and the final week of the session. So hopefully that I hope that you enjoyed the class and had opportunity to really try to get some of this information and apply it in your future endeavors. In any instance, make sure that you get all your work completed and done. If you have questions about the evaluation, the final deliverable, basically what I'm looking for is the culmination of all the weekly assignments put into one final package that will be your report, all right, your event report or the report of the event, whatever the case you may be, right? So, the key thing is to go back to each week's assignment and just kind of, fill in the gaps, make the corrections that need to be made, add more content to them, give some depth and body and some, some real rigor, right? Not just put a couple numbers down as a budget and then call it a day. Put the budget down, explain the budget, kind of itemize it a little better, right? The timeline, the staffing requirements, put a little more detail into those things. And then as your final, piece for week 8, you're going to wrap that up in a summary type format and do the last assignment for this week, in addition to the PowerPoint that's required, because, just putting the event together is one thing, but you will have to present your event, schedule of events or just the event in general. You have to brief that to someone, right? So that they know that you know what's going on from A to Z, from facilities to staffing to security to, VIPs to everything that's going on, right? So you'll have to brief that to someone. So the way that you want to do the PowerPoint is to basically break down each week, right? Or each particular area that we looked at and then put a slide together for each of those areas, right? So you should have basically 8 to 10 slides, right? I'm not worried about the time as far as the presentation. I'm really just looking for the content and a good delivery, right? Make sure that when you put together your slides that you just don't throw stuff on there, like paragraphs and all that stuff, right? PowerPoints are meant to be used as a guide, all right? Hey, remind me to talk about different things or remind me to highlight certain issues I want to make sure I don't forget to talk about, right? We don't want you necessarily reading from the slides, every slide, and then not really elaborating on anything after that, right? So be personable in the presentation. Be at ease. Talk about it like as if you were talking to someone that's just garnering information about the event. If they were a fan or someone who wanted to attend, talk to them in that way. But also consider your audience of who's going to be getting this PowerPoint, right? It's going to be the senior executives. It's going to be the sponsors. It's going to be people that are making major decisions with a lot of money on the line, right? So you have to be detailed in what you're presenting, and they're not just going to accept just a blurb saying, "Oh, we have 10 people for staffing." That doesn't really cut it. Okay, so just a little guidance to help you, get this last assignment done and get your final done and get everything and submitted and so you can get a good grade. All right. Okay. So last week, as I said, chapter 13, and we're going to talk about post-event details and evaluation. Right. So once the event is done, right, you're really kind of the beginning of the end, right? You're not done yet, right? So all the fans leave, the athletes may leave also, and now we just you, your staff, and the venue, right? And so what typically happens after that is the cleanup and breakdown, right? We have to make sure we sanitize the area, pick up all the trash, sweep, mop, dust, do everything that we need to do, put everything back in order, put everything back in place, account for everything, right? Do an inventory of all the equipment that was out, make sure everything's back in, annotate any deficiencies, any mechanical breakdowns of equipment, any other issues, as far as the facilities, right? So we want to clean up and break down, okay? So that helps us get everything prepared for the next event, right? And it not sitting around waiting as as if we didn't know, hey, that particular golf cart broke the last event and no one looked at it. It never got repaired. It's just been sitting there for the next week. And the next event comes and we don't have it. Okay. So readiness, right, is directly correlated to your maintenance levels. Okay. You want to be reactive and do your preventive maintenance, all right, and make sure that everything is in working order so that you don't have to get ready. You stay ready. Okay. All right. So here's some bullets here. If a vendor is allowed to operate in the sports facility, standards of cleaning should be set and clearly communicated along with the deposit in the event you need to pay a third party to clean the area, right? So we all know there's always a deposit or some monies that are put down, right? Because we want to make sure that everyone is invested in this whole venture, right? And to make sure that you hold people accountable, sometimes the only way is for them to, put down some kind of financial monetary collateral, okay? And so that way I know, hey, you have some skin in the game and then you are serious about what's going on. All right. During breakdown, rental equipment need to be delivered to the rental agencies. Of course, if that's the case, you rented equipment, everything, as I said, had to be returned to its proper place and to its proper owner. The setup and breakdown portion of any event can be chaotic and valuable items susceptible to theft or loss, right? As I said, you have to take inventory, okay, and make sure that everything that you started with is still there, right? People will steal stuff. Fans will take stuff. If it's out in the open and if it's something that can be easily carried away, they will take it, right? Because for them, it's a moment. They can remember the time that they came and saw the fight or the match or whatever the case may be, and so they'll take it. You also have staff who are maybe hired on, right? They have no real concern or real loyalty to the company, right? So they'll take whatever they feel like taking. Right. Post-event promotions. By reaching out to user groups through post-event promotions, the event plan stay in touch with the primary consumers of the event, right? So promotions can take any form: newsletters, follow-up on contest sweepstakes, posting of photos, videos. After marketing, the process of providing continuing satisfaction and reinforcement to individual or past or current customers, which helps to create lasting relationships. All right, so really we're talking about, and especially this day and age, we're talking about a lot of social media, right? A lot of Instagram, posting of pictures, Facebook, that kind of thing. Reaching out to the consumer after the event is over and asking them how did they enjoy themselves, right? How was their experience? Is there something that they would like to see next time? Is there something we could do better, right? Those are things that happen at post-event promotions, right? Also talking to the sponsors, talking to, the athletes and asking them like, what do you think could have been done better for this particular event, right? The artist, whoever it is, right? Trying to just refine and revise the product, right? We're trying to make it better. And only going to know how to make it better is to, really talk to the participants, post event, right? So you can get an idea of, okay, what does it look like from the outside, looking in at the event, being actually part of the event, what's it look like, all right? Securing post-event media coverage, depending on the type and impact of the event. Securing some form of post-event media coverage may or may not be necessary. Media relations programs maximize favorable publicity and minimize unfavorable publicity for the sport organization. Post-event media coverage often takes the form of a quick interview of players and coaches. We see this all the time, right? After basketball games, baseball games, football games, hockey, doesn't matter, World Cup, you see these, post-event media, situations where you have the athletes talking on camera about certain situations or certain periods of the game, of the event, right? How they felt, what went into a certain play, right? Some of the finer details as to, what was going on in their mind, what was going on in the dugout or on the field, right? On the pitch, whatever the case may be, right? Getting media coverage is key to promoting your event, right? And to making sure that people understand that they have some level of access to the athletes and what the mindset is and really, what goes on during the in the midst of the event, right? All right, some news conferences, as I said before, right? So that's definitely, one of the major ways that we do post-event media where all the reporters get together and then the players, depending on who they are, come up to the podium or the table, and they answer questions, right? As a Q&A. And so, that happens. That's pretty much the way most post-event media sessions happen. It's not for everyone to attend. They usually like certain players to come, especially if they're, pretty well-known players and superstars. Then they'll, have them come on. Or if it's someone that was extremely pivotal or performed extremely well or poorly during the event, then they'll want to talk to them too, okay? The goal of a news conference to release noteworthy information from organization to its targeted group. To avoid unwanted emotional comments from players and coaches, event planners should factor in the time before the conference when players and coaches can cool down, right? You don't necessarily always want to talk to the players right away, okay? Because sometimes in the heat of battle, right, and they're still kind of stewing over maybe the loss and upset about maybe a bad call by the referee, or maybe they feel in their judgment something was missed, or they were cheated. Whatever the case may be, you want to give the players and coaches an opportunity to kind of unwind, right? But sometimes you may catch an interview or some conference very quickly on the field, depending again who it is. All right. So that's something to keep in mind. Social media, as I mentioned before, pictures will be uploaded, and that will give the fans direct access to some of the pictures of the events that occurred, even if they weren't there specifically for that particular situation. But at least they can see what was going on while they were there at the venue. Okay. Sponsor follow-up. I kind of mentioned this earlier also. Relationship with corporate sponsors does not end once the event is complete, right? Shortly after the event, the sponsor should be contacted, and the meeting should be scheduled. During the meeting, the sponsor representative should be provided with metrics that measure the success of the sponsorship. It's hard to quantify some parts of a sponsorship agreement because emotion can play a large role, right? So we really won't know how effective the sponsorship campaign was for a little bit, right? You may see the sponsor may see an uptick in sales, or may see an uptick in traffic flow, or whatever the case may be. But in order to really understand whether or not it came from the event, they will have to do some kind of survey, right? Even if it's informal, and more anecdotal and not very academic in nature, you can still do a quick poll for customers that come in, like, hey, how'd you find out about us? Hey, did you go to the event last week? Did you, see us there? Is that how you found out about us, right? Those kind of questions, right? Those help the sponsor understand, whether or not their sponsorship is a good fit with that particular event and that venue, right? It also gives them an idea if they want to do it again, or if there's things that they can change up and tweak that make the situation better, right? Debriefing, of course, we debrief about everything, right? After everything is done, you're going to sit down with the staff, right? And you're going to discuss the pros and cons, the challenges, the positive notes, some of the things that need to be taken care of, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's important that you debrief and you really get a sense of overall how everything went and how everybody feels about how the event went off, okay? Debriefing with the most important stakeholders involved in planning the event is an important opportunity for event planners to gain feedback about the event. Event planners ask the various stakeholders to complete a report that highlights findings from the event and provides recommendations for improving future events. Event planners can also use a survey during this phase. So for debriefings, I typically like to have as many people as I can in the staff that at the meeting, at the debriefing, because even at the lowest levels, there's some input, there's some information that can be garnered from those folks. So I like to, have everyone involved in the debriefing. Now, when it comes to an actual report, that I leave, in the hands of my senior guys, right, to provide me, not only a oral report, right, or verbal report as we're discussing the pros and cons, but they are going to write up a formal report as a debrief so that we can archive it, all right? And we archive it so that we can go back to it and have it kind of a lessons learned category or function, right? We can go back and say, oh, you know what? We did this event in 2013. We should have a debrief or after action report. Let's pull it up and see what happened. And you can tell about, see what was good, what was bad, what worked, what didn't work, money spent, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's good to have a debrief and to, of course, codify, by putting it into a report that will be archived and accessible for the next 4 or 5 years, okay? So they got levels of event evaluation, right? So level 0, we're really looking at stats, scope, and volume, right? Really collecting data about, how many people showed up, the press coverage, website traffic, all the analytical stuff, okay, is really what we're looking at for level 0. Really the low-hanging fruit, because their numbers, they're attainable, they're right there, real time and easy to track, and easy to get, right? Ticket sales, just all the metrics on how much money was made, how much time it took for certain things to occur. So that's level 0. Level 1 is more of the reaction, satisfaction, plan action, right? Gathers information on what stakeholders started the planning process, marketing efforts, and facilities, right? So we're looking at what internally, what did we think of, the event, right? And how it went off. What does the staff think? What can be done better? Do we think that marketing needs to change something? Do you think we need to do something? Do we need to start planning sooner, right? Do we have flex to plan later, and put something else in between this event and another event? So are there some things that the facilities that need to be repaired? So we look at those things, right? Level 2, learning evaluation measures the extent to which principles, facts, techniques, skills, and professional contact have been acquired during the sporting event. So now we're looking to see, did we create any new relationships? Okay. Did we, figure out any new ways in doing things, right? Did we figure out some new approach? Did we notice a skill set that we didn't know we had within our repertoire that now we realize, like, oh, we can do this also, and do it well, right? So level 2 really is about, understanding what we bring to the table from a skill standpoint, right? Level 3, application measures the extent to which skills, knowledge, professional context learned at the meeting were applied on the job. So now we're looking at, past, contact or past things we looked at, that we said we were going to fix or, implement. Did we do those things, and did they work, right? We kind of look at, maybe, some things we did two events ago, and then we decided, okay, we're going to tweak a couple of things and we're going to insert them into this upcoming event, and then to see how that worked, okay? Business level 4, business impacts, monitors organizational improvements of business measures that sales, cost savings, work output, and quality changes. Of course, we're looking to, revise the business operations, okay? And trying to figure out how can we increase sales, lower cost, right? Get more productivity out of the staff, but still provide a high quality product, good or service. Okay, so we're really looking at the business operations, the internal functions of what we're doing, right? The operations side of the house. All right. Then we got level 5, ROI, right? Return on investment for the various stakeholders of meetings, calculate the ratio of benefits to cost, right? So when we look at level 5, we're looking at, for the amount of investment we made, was it worth it, right? Was the juice worth the squeeze? Okay. The squeeze, yeah, was the juice worth the squeeze, right? And so, all the effort we put into it, all the money that was invested, all the time, right, and effort, right, did it make us money? Okay, at the end of the day, that's really going to be the measuring stick, right? Did we come out on top? Did we come out in the black, or did we come out in the red, right? Did we take a loss on this particular event, or did we make a profit? Okay, after everything is said and done, we paid out the bills, we closed, we shut it out, we reconciled, we paid for all the maintenance and all the things that need to be paid for, and everything is signed, sealed, delivered. What was our net, profit? Okay, that's the measuring stick. All right, in-game and management evaluation. Participants and spectators can provide feedback using a street intercept methodology where people are surveyed as they enter or exit a sport venue. Use both qualitative and quantitative types of research. Individual interviews and small focus groups can be conducted at events. Management should also be evaluating how effective they are at managing the staff, right? So here we're talking about really doing, some research, all right? And either focus groups, as I said, exit surveys, okay? When people come in, you ask them a couple questions. When people are leaving, you ask them a couple questions real quick. You don't want to take up too much of their time, 10, 15 seconds tops. Because people are trying to either get to their seats and get situated, or they're trying to get home and get in their car and go home, right? And so there's a concern with that. So using both qualitative and quantitative types of research, right? If we're looking at quantitative, we're probably looking at more focus groups, one-on-one interviews and that kind of thing. Quantitative, we're looking at surveys and asking people, based on a scale of 1 to 5 or some kind of scale, a numerical scale, what they thought, right? So there's different ways in which to, really get an idea of, what people thought about the event. As I mentioned earlier, it's about really asking the right questions to the spectators pre and post, right? Because you want to ask them pre because if you ask them pre, then you have an idea about what they were expecting, right? You ask them post because then now you can really compare the two and say, did we meet their expectation? Okay, so you want to try to get both if possible. Very difficult. I get it, especially in a venue where people are going back and forth and, you're not going to catch the same person coming through the same entrance and leaving out the same, entrance, way they came in. Very unlikely. But nonetheless, if you send them, something before the event starts and to ask them just how they felt about it, what did they learn about it? Did they think the ticket prices were fair? And that kind of thing. And then when they come to the event, and then after they leave the event, you can send another survey to ask, okay, what did they think about the event and did it meet their expectations? Okay. Staff evaluations. Okay. Evaluating the staff maintains control over the success of the event and is helpful for professional development. Okay. Benchmarking is a search for the best practice that will lead to exceptional performance to implementation of practices. Use management by wandering around. Okay. This is the business of staying in touch. The event manager should be critically involved in the operations of the event. Another way to evaluate staff is to send out service to the consumer, right? So when you're doing staff evaluations, really, the only way to do these good staff evaluations is to be out there, right? As it says, management by wandering around. It's to get in there and to watch, okay? And see and watch your people in action and see how they perform in sticky situations when the challenges, presented to them. How do they overcome those challenges? How do they address the fans, how they help the customer who's there at the venue, right, to enjoy themselves even more. What kind of issues did they have? Did they have any technical issues? Did they have any issues that require more training on their part, right? So you want to get an idea about the staff, right, and evaluate them fairly. But you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way where you're actually seeing at least, not all of them, but at least some of them in action, right? While it's going on, till you get a feel for exactly how everybody performs and who, are your star players and who are the people that you count on and who are the ones that, that, okay, maybe they need a little push and a little more motivation from, the leadership. All right. Budget as an evaluation tool. Budgets need to be updated each time you receive new costs or make adjustments or changes. Look at the ROI, which compares the cost of the event of the usefulness, measured in monetary benefits. Return on event is used to identify the percent of earnings return to an event organization sponsoring the event based on market effort. Successful budgeting is dependent on the amount of detail put into the budget. Okay. So looking at the budget and seeing, really, did we stay on budget or did we go over budget? Okay. We always want to come under budget, but then we also want to evaluate what was our budget in general, right? We allocated $2 million for this event, right? Did we, spend $2 million or did we spend less than that? Did we go over? And if we did, go over or under, why? Okay. We want to look at the specifics as to, where did we cut costs or where did we have an increase in costs? All right. Where did we not budget correctly? Okay. Because even if it's under, it's still an incorrect budget. All right. It's an incorrect forecast. So we want to know where did we miss, because a miss in one place, right, could have been a correct estimate in another, right? So yes, we came in under budget, but at the same time, the budget was still incorrect. So now we could have used that money that we overestimated, right? We could use it for something else. So you lose, you have an opportunity cost here. All right. And so you have to make sure that you figure out, okay, where exactly are these budgets, lining up with, the actual expenditures. Okay. Attendance as an evaluation tool for a single event, compare attendance year to year. Multiple events can be compared to one another. All right. Two ways to count attendance at a sport event: paid attendance and turnstile counts. This is how many people bought tickets versus how many people actually came to the event. Right. Control the announcement of attendance. There's no industry standard for the correct way to count the attendance. Simply calculating the attendance without taking into account other relevant factors can be misleading when evaluating. Right. It's really hard to figure out or to assess, you know, um, the event based on attendance, right? Because in more normal circumstances, most people who have a ticket didn't necessarily buy the ticket. Okay. So if I'm looking at attendance, I'm probably going to be more focused on, the turnstile, and trying to make sure I have a count of how many people actually attended. Because at the end of the day, I know everybody that comes through the gate, comes through the turnstile, they had to buy a ticket. Okay. Vi's just looking at paid attendance, right? Just looking at the sheer numbers of saying, oh, this is how many people bought tickets. All right. Yes, this is how many people bought tickets, but how many tickets did they buy? Right. So you have to kind of compare those two numbers, right? And collect those things, right? And when they say, attendance, comparison attendance from year to year, especially with different events, that's important to do, because if you start to see the attendance going down, there may be a couple of things going on, right? There may be a lack of interest in the event. There may be an issue of space, or the appropriate facility to really make the event pop. And so we may have to change venues in order to really make the event what it's supposed to be, or what people are expecting, right? So again, as I said, there's a lot of factors that go into using attendance as an evaluation tool, but it can be a useful tool. All right. Evaluate outcomes and objectives. Return objectives seen as more of a comprehensive measure when compared to ROI. Some guidelines for measuring ROI. Talk with key stakeholders, ask them questions, take that conversation and come up with a few objectives. Determine how your objectives turn into monetary deliverables. Factor in that every dollar spent should be tied to the objective. Set up a simple and consistent way of measuring success based on your objectives. Okay. So it's really about, the mission, right? Your objectives, and making sure that you attain those objectives, but also looking at, okay, how much money did we allocate to each objective, right? To each task, within those objectives. It's like comparing manpower and HR, right? HR is concerned about the maintenance and the care of the workforce, right? Manpower is more about the staffing and the dollars associated with each of those skill sets that we got to bring to the table, right? So each skill set and what it's worth is tied to a objective that's tied to the mission or the overall goal of the company, all right, of the organization. And so those things are directly linked. And so I can get a better assessment doing a manpower analysis than I do an HR analysis if I'm looking at ROI, right? Okay. Measuring economic impact, kind of have a keen understanding of economic impact. Economic impact is widely used to sell key stakeholders on bidding on and hosting an event in their region due to the positive impact the event will have economically. The total estimated economic impact of a sporting event is composed of the direct, induced, indirect, and implicit benefits that are calculated, right? So again, most events have a pretty good or positive economic impact on the community that they're being held in, right? Because you got to think about all the ancillary, tertiary things that are, people are going to do and get involved in, right? It's not just about the event, as we've been talking about. It's about all the other stuff surrounding the event, right? When the event is going on, or pre the event, post the event, people are going out to dinner. They have some place to stay. They need other activities to get involved in as they're waiting for the day of the event, or even that day of the event, they're driving down, gas station. All those things have to be taken into account as to what was the economic impact, to the city or to the community that, the event was being hosted in. All right. So at this point, this concludes this week's brief. Pretty short, quick to the point. Again, uh, managing events is a very chaotic, um, fast-paced, very stressful endeavor. Right? You have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. You have to be open-minded. You have to be reactive and proactive at the same time. So it takes a lot. It takes a very unique person to be able to manage a lot of events, because it's not just about you doing the work. It's about you delegating and empowering people to do and make decisions on your behalf, in order for things to happen, right? No one man or woman can do this alone. It takes a team, right? And so having a cohesive, symbiotic team and synergistic team really is the key to, pulling off a successful event. All right. All right. So as I said before, get all your work in. If you have any questions or comments or anything about, anything that you need me to clarify, please email me at, the email that's on the syllabus, okay, and not any other email. And so with that said, it's been a great class. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I appreciated all your feedback, all your responses, a lot of the activities and the event and the sporting activity, sporting clinics, and things that you guys were going to put on are very interesting. And I know that they would go off pretty well, based on some of the stuff that I've seen in the plan, and I know some of you guys would have would do, in light of those events, right? So hopefully you get a chance to put on your own event one of these days. It's very satisfying after the event is done to see that went off well. All right, I've done a couple myself, some basketball tournaments and that kind of thing, and it's been really interesting and fun. Right, meet a lot of good people, make a lot of good connections, and things. Usually people have a good time, and there's always something to fix. But at the end of the day, it's about just putting on a good event and providing a good product. All right. Have a good day.